Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our council meeting. I'd like to begin by standing for a moment of silence and follow that with the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Join me, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, if we could have a roll call, please.
Brad Hint.
Here.
Tom Eggers.
Here.
Wayne Barahona.
Here.
Pete Hamble.
Here.
Okay. Moving on to the approval of the agenda.
Make a motion to approve. Support.
Any comments or questions? Roll call, please.
Hamble.
Aye.
Hint.
Aye.
Eggers.
Aye.
Moving to the public forum section of our meeting. Is there anyone here that would like to speak at this time? Or anyone listening in by Zoom? Seeing no responses, so we'll move on then to our consent agenda.
Move that we accept the agenda as presented.
Support.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Hint.
Aye.
Eggers.
Aye.
Barahona.
Aye.
Hamble.
Aye.
Just for the newspaper, to the appointment for the library board is Madeline Mullally, eye doctor with Sheldon Vision Care here, new to town. Then moving on to item 6A, under new business, discussion of a resolution approving the server and IT managed services quotes. And we do have enough people here to discuss this. So Sam, I'll let you start if you want to comment.
Yes. Thank you, Mayor. So this is an item, if you recall, I brought to you as one of the priorities to consider at our 2019 goal setting, and which seems like a long time ago because it was pre-COVID. Lots changed since then, but what hasn't changed is our need for an improved network, and I'm aware of other city administrators who have dealt with nightmares on their networks because of lack of investment, and so it was time that we looked at investing more in our network. So it's different than, say, buying a piece of equipment or bidding a street. Getting IT services it's more of a quote process, and it's so what I did is I asked Wayne Barahona and Super High Tech for a quote because they did services for the city prior to his election to the city council. I also reached out to IT and do our services now. I also reached out to IT in a Box, which is a well-known, reputable partner of the Iowa and the National League of Cities, and they gave me some quotes. So we're about to discuss those. So if it's okay, Wayne, if you want to come down and answer, I have a few questions about the quotes. One of the questions is could you briefly talk about, because obviously the first time you saw the IT in a Box quotes was when I had them linked, and you saw them for the first time when everybody else did. So talk briefly about the difference that you see in the quotes. Are we getting basically the same thing as what IT in the Box is offering or more? And also, if you could address two aspects that was in the IT in a Box quote that wasn't explicitly mentioned in yours, which one was Microsoft Office, I believe, was in one of them, and then the other was, more importantly, was data backup. So if you want to just broadly address that.
Certainly.
So managed services is kind of it's a industry buzzword, but really what it comes down to is basically maintaining the security of your data and maintaining uptime. And it's done through an automated route, which is how this particular service model has come about. So what we as managed service providers do is take the total computer inventory of a business, or in this case the city, at 16 computers, and we deploy a software on there that will manage all of the updates, that will take care of antivirus, and will take care of allow us to remote in to fix issues as needed, and it will all do this in an automated sense. So that is really there are 100 different ways you could say it, but managed services is kind of the catch-all for this. So what we do is we just, this is our package and our means to give the most reliable security and uptime for our end users. So in response to your question, our quote did not include Office 365 because you already have an existing subscription base for that. So, and you are paying that separately. So I did not feel the need to include it within the scope of our services because it was already there. And when we had originally spoken in regards to the data backup, and we had a number of meetings about this as we were starting to identify the goals of managed services for the city, data backup was included. It is included. It's just a line item that was left out of the actual estimate sent to you. So I apologize for that. That's my error for omitting that line item. But data backup for each particular workstation is included in the scope of the quote that was presented.
So if I could ask a follow-up question, Mayor. So your quote for 1 year of service is roughly 10 times less than the middle IT in a box. So what are we missing out on?
Well, you're missing out on the fact that we're a nationwide company, that we're not needing to spend money to advertise all over the country and the world for our services. We all use kind of the same back-end provider. We just, being that we are in a small market, we just don't feel that we can justify the large markups that an IT in a box type level of service provider feels that they need to charge in order to get their business. You know, this is a company that will provide these services for large towns, for multi-million-dollar companies. And while we don't have that same reach, our software that we implore to do this still has the same level of threat protection, data security, and reliable uptime. So really, I guess it could be said that I just didn't charge enough, but at the same time, I think it's a fair value for what we provide, and I would be willing to put my name and reputation on the line to put it up against any other out-of-the-box solution from any other provider.
So, question, if I may.
Go ahead.
So with this, Wayne, in reference to Sam's last question, there is no gap when it comes to dependability and quality of the service that you have quoted versus what we would expect from any of the other quotes.
That's correct. As far as the things that are laid out within the scope of the estimate, they're going to match up in general the same way as what an IT in the box would. The only real market difference would be instead of dealing with a salesman or dealing with someone in another state or another country, you're dealing with someone here locally to work hand in hand in making sure that all of the needs are met.
Okay, very good. So there's really two pieces to this puzzle. One is this provision of the server. and the other is the providing of managed services.
Right.
Are you doing the managed services currently, or is that a new piece?
That is that's a new piece. So that's something that really hasn't been done, at least on a wide level in the city before. So this is something that that we had looked to do as being the city's current IT provider, to make to really try and shore up some of these holes that we've noticed, and to make sure that it really reduces the need for on-site time for techs, and certainly the need for a full-time or even part-time IT person. So that's what this it's kind of a blanket protection that gives you. You head these problems off at the pass before having to come address them. The way that it sits right now, we're basically more like firemen, where we have to go attack the problem when it's an emergent situation, as opposed to being able to provide a level of normalcy, level of just keeping an eye on everything. So, and then so it differs from like the domain controller thing, that was the server thing that you were talking about, in so much as the server is a one-time purchase.
Right.
It's a one piece of hardware, where this is the managed services are a yearly contract.
And ongoing.
Yes.
So are there other entities, either public or private, that you're doing this for currently?
Yeah, we do this for at different levels for about 20 different businesses throughout Northwest Iowa.
Okay.
And actually some in Southeast South Dakota as well.
Mm-hmm. All right. That's all the questions I have. Anything from Pete or Brad?
If I might say one more thing, Mayor.
Yeah, go ahead, Sam.
So I'd like to just add that I don't intend on having this on an agenda every year. I mean, that's one of the reasons why I felt it was important to have it on an agenda now, because once we have things settled with managed services and it's going well, then the discussion, if there would be any, would be at budget time. But I wouldn't intend to have a standalone quote every
Sure.
year. And really, the only reason that I brought forward the server quote on the same agenda is because we got the server quote at the same time as the managed services quote, and it just made sense to put them in the same resolution. So I recommend approval of
Right.
the high tech.
Pete, I heard you say something. I kind of cut you off in the middle there. Did you have any questions?
No, I did not.
Okay, very good. If there are no more questions, then I'd consider a motion for approving the resolution.
I'll make the motion to approve.
Support. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Hamel,
Aye.
Farahona,
Abstain.
thank you. Eggers,
Aye.
Hint,
Aye.
All right, very good. You may come back to your chair.
Thank you. You did good.
Thank you, Wayne. All right, moving on then to the zoning ordinance amendments. At this time, we'd like to open the public hearing to discuss both of the items, one being a change in the language of one of the ordinances, the other being adds a section to the additional use regulation. So we are opening the public hearing to discuss both those items at this time. If anybody wants to speak to that, now would be your time to come forward, or to unmute yourself if you're listening in by Zoom. I see no activity in the room. Anybody listening in? Would that be Meyerhoff? CD Meyerhoff, you have unmuted. If you need to say something, now would be your time. Not hearing anything. If it's a mic issue, perhaps you should try and call in and we can come back to you if you do have a comment to make. Otherwise, I would entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Support.
Roll call, please.
Eggers,
Aye.
Farahona,
Aye.
Hint,
Aye.
Hamel,
Aye.
All right, then moving on to the second portion of this, approving the resolution amendments to the zoning ordinances as recommended by the Planning and Zoning Commission. So that would be item B on your agenda here now.
If I might, Mayor.
Yes.
Just so we're on the same page on this, you are not approving either amendment by approving this resolution. You're simply affirming the form and that the proper process was followed for the hearing, et cetera, and then it paves the way for first reading in both.
Okay. With that understanding, is there any other questions or comments? If not, I would entertain a motion to approve the resolution as presented.
So moved.
Support.
All right, roll call, please.
Hamel.
Pete, you are mute. You need to unmute for roll call. There we go. Was that an aye? You're still muted.
Aye.
There we go.
Excuse me. Farahona.
Aye.
Eggers.
Aye.
Hint.
Aye.
All right, that carries, and then we'll move on to the item C, zoning ordinance amendment to rezone 3075A Nest Avenue, changing it from agricultural to suburban residential. Any comments you want to make on that one, Sam?
Thank you, Mayor. This has been in front of you before as an FYI. It's also been vetted by the Planning and Zoning Commission twice now. I do not believe that there's any concern out there that hasn't been addressed. So I would ask that you consider approving first reading and waiving second and third on this item.
Okay. Any other comments or questions regarding this item? And if somebody wants to make a motion, we can move forward with that one.
I'll move forward with waiving second and third readings and going forward with the rezoning.
Okay. Do we have support for that?
Support.
Angie, make that sound better in the minutes, please.
I'll paraphrase.
Thanks.
All right. We have a support for that, right? A roll call, please.
Eggers.
Aye.
Farahona.
Aye.
Hint.
Aye.
Hamel.
Aye.
All right. And then the one that might generate more discussion would be item D there, the zoning ordinance amendment to tighten urban livestock rules in arterial commercial and suburban residential zones. Any comments there?
Yes. And I'll start off with this. I don't think you should waive second and third on this. I think this is important enough, and there's been enough discussion on the overall issue of livestock that you should probably have at least two readings. So I've got a fairly good explanation there, but I'll just briefly run through it. This issue is a little bit complicated because there are two urban livestock amendments pending. One of them tightens the rules, but at the same time it tightens the rules, it lays a building block, if you choose to later on, to expand that building block, which would only be in suburban residential, which is on the zoning map, it's the blue areas outside of city limits, mainly. It allows that to be expanded into residential areas. That one is pending at the May 12 P&Z Commission meeting. So I don't want to mislead you by saying that one tightens and one loosens, because it isn't that simple. One tightens, but at the same time creates a building block for expanding livestock into other areas. So if that part concerns you, then that part would probably have the most discussion today, because that ordinance that's pending in front of Planning and Zoning Commission next week, they can recommend it for approval, but that ordinance goes nowhere unless this ordinance ultimately passes with that definition, that new definition in it. Does that make sense?
Yes. Anybody? Go ahead.
So P&Z is basically needing us to understand our position as a council on the First Amendment, basically, for them to address on the 12th the remaining work that they're working.
Well, that would be helpful, Tom, but it isn't necessary as long as I make sure they understand, which I have put in my explanation to them, that their potential desire to expand into other areas goes nowhere if this ordinance doesn't pass third reading.
Right.
So,
yeah, the reason I asked the question is that I'm trying to get clarity on how, since both are part of the overall conversation that looms our community, should they not be discussed at the same time instead of trying to discuss one and then discuss the other?
you certainly can. You can approve first reading today, knowing that you have second and third. You can continue this because you've had the public hearing and that's closed. So you can continue this to coincide with being after the public hearing for the other one. You could take this one all the way up to third reading with reservation that you're not committing to it, and you're not going to pass it until you see the other one
Right.
on the same agenda. That way, you're not saying to them that you fully support this. You're moving this along, and you encourage people to get involved in the discussion and the process.
Yeah, I want to support the process without having to determine the total outcome, and or by swaying the final outcome. So, I guess I would be in favor to go ahead and approve the first reading, but to have our real discussion once we get the feedback from P&Z on the other amendment. I don't know if that makes sense to the rest of my councilmen and mayor, but I would rather have it all together and then let's talk about the whole thing. So, okay.
I agree with that.
The one question I have, there was email that you had forwarded voicing concerns over a neighbor that had chickens. That addresses this in a sense too, doesn't it? I mean, in terms of they're not happy with it, correct?
Well, they didn't specifically mention this ordinance, and I don't think they knew about it when they contacted me. But it's a neighbor whose dogs have been barking, and this neighbor believes that her dogs are barking because of the chickens, and the neighbor who has the chickens believes that the dogs were barking before the chickens came. And it's a virtually unresolvable conflict, and I shouldn't say unresolvable. It's a difficult conflict to step into the middle of, and it's probably an example of what we're going to see more of. I don't know about a lot more of, but we may see more of that. And so I felt it was important to disclose that to you. And that is one of the 3 or 4 that you approved last year, who went through the proper process under the previous ordinance. And now we've got a situation where there's a very unhappy neighbor who, when that comes forward in July, actually it expires in July. They need to go through the new process if there is one, because you've amended that ordinance, so they can't come to the council directly anymore.
So, okay.
But it's important to know that if you have reservations or concerns about that definition, that's that is being added in this ordinance that you consider having that discussion prior to third reading of this ordinance.
And you'll have to pardon the pun, but are we playing a game of chicken with P&Z? Are they not, are they looking to us to make a decision as we're looking for them to make a decision? It kind of seems like we're serving volley here a little bit. We told them, or we enabled them to be the arbiters of this, and now kind of coming back to us to clarify the language. I just wonder, is everyone on the same?
I think the Planning Commission, like you, is reflective of the community. They heard some concerns in opposition to urban livestock at that very first meeting. There wasn't much of a counterpoint to that discussion at that time. Since that time, they've received a lot more feedback. They received a lot more information, and they have worked hard to come up with a balancing act that strives to narrow it in certain areas. I mean, who wants livestock in the arterial commercial zone? That's all the green on the zoning map. You can have a farm anywhere in the green now without really any sort of a process. That needs to be corrected. So we're looking at correcting that, correcting a few other minor things relating to that, and then because you're taking away farm from suburban residential, but you also, my suggestion was, don't completely pull the rug out from suburban residential, because you don't want to discourage people to go through the rezoning process to develop their property. So come up with a balance that goes to the Board of Adjustment. So then that's when we came up with that definition that could then be later expanded per a public hearing through Board of Adjustment. After an ordinance change, it would expand it to other places.
So it plays to the middle.
It attempts to.
Yes. Okay. Any other questions?
Or do we just wait and have the first reading next week after we get the stuff back from P&Z? Once they finalize it, then we can finalize it after them.
So that's the volley to their serve.
Well, I think it all goes back to my earlier point, is that I think we need to hear from P&Z what we were hoping to get from P&Z, is some clarity and some structure to this, and then we need to collaboratively address the issue as a whole. And so I would support that position.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's a competition, maybe like Wayne's maybe framing it a little bit. I think it's just part of how we're working out a process that it doesn't exist today. And you got to figure out all the, nooks and crannies of that. And so someone's got to throw it one way and someone's got to throw it back, and it goes back and forth. That's just a collaborative process. So I support what zoning commission's doing, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what their collective wisdom is in addressing the other part of this, and at that point then we can work with the community to come up with something, not only that it's an ordinance that's workable, but it's enforceable. And that's the other part of this, is any law or ordinance is worth its weight on paper if you can't enforce it.
Yep.
And that's when the community is going to want to understand what that enforcement will look like. And so let's get the whole thing into one discussion so that we can work it through.
So if we approve the first reading, how does that differ than continuing it? Is what Brad, you mentioned something about continuing it.
I'm okay either way, Mayor. You can you can approve first reading and ask for second reading and not come back until after the public hearing has been held on the next ordinance, because the next ordinance has to be considered by P&Z, and then it has to come to the city council for a set for hearing. So you'd set for hearing on May 19 at the earliest, maybe June 2, because Mike, I need some time to get it ready for all that. So we do a set for hearing. Remember the last set for hearing, we set it like a month out to give time for publication, because we have urban renewal publications and other things we're working on. So it could be June or July by the time you have the hearing on the other. And remember, on the other, if you saw my explanation for the Planning Commission packet next week, there's an issue with that, because the Planning and Zoning Commission's text amendment that they initiated doesn't cover light industrial zoning. We have someone that's approached the mayor and I who has chickens in the light industrial zone and wants to be able to keep them. Well, that other ordinance. So that, long story short, that other ordinance could be in the P&Z Commission for a while. But you still need to, in my opinion, ultimately tighten the ordinance relating to arterial commercial. I think that's important. So to kind of split the difference here, I'd recommend approving first reading and then ask for second reading to not come back until after the hearing is complete for the other one.
I think that makes sense, too. But I can't make that as a motion, so.
I suppose it gives some affirmation to P&Z that we're on board, and so I'll make that motion that we accept first reading and hold second reading until after the
city council public hearing of the other ordinance.
Yes.
I'll support that.
Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Eggers.
Aye.
Hint.
Aye.
Farahona.
Aye.
Hamel.
Aye.
All right, let's move on then to reports. First one being an update on our aerial fire truck situation.
I guess looking at me. So, yeah, last week, Chief Kruger, Captain Ball, and myself went down to Huntsville, Alabama, went to Brindley Mountain Fire Apparatus. They're a broker and seller of used fire trucks. Looked at an aerial, spent a day there looking it over, pumping it, running it. It is something that would work for us. We had a list of items that we're negotiating with, things that we want done to the truck before we move forward, so that it's kind of negotiating with them, seeing where that final number comes out at. We are also doing our due diligence at looking at new, seeing what the price of that is, and compared to used, compared to new. Do you keep it used 12 to 15 years where you could keep a new one for 20? So the department is still doing its due diligence on replacing that truck. So that's where we're at right now. Our officers will get together tomorrow night and visit a little bit more, and we'll just continue to work on as we make progress.
Given how long it took to place our order and get the pumper truck we had most recently.
Any new truck will be a year, roughly about a year delivery.
It's not increased because of COVID
No.
COVID fallout. and
Not
so on.
as of yet.
Okay.
The used one would be anywhere from 90 to 120 days delivery by the time they would do our list of things that we'd want done, and then also to get into their time schedule. So it could be, 4 to 6 months.
Okay.
So
All right.
we're still doing our due diligence, and we will report back when we have some more information.
Okay. Thank you, Brad.
Yep.
City Manager, anything that you'd like to add, Sam? All right. Todd, anything from you?
Maybe just a little construction update from on top of what's in Sam's report. The street reconstruction project is going well. North 18th will hopefully be open next week, Tuesday, May 11. They plan to tear out Oak Street from Wansing to North 18th on Wednesday, May 12. They paved today from Washington Avenue to Rainbow Drive. Things are going pretty well there. The sanitary sewer lining project on 4th Street and Washington Avenue. I wish I had good news to report on that one, but I don't. That project is not going so well. That's not any fault of the contractor or us or the engineer for all that matters. We've just found some conditions that have worsened quite a bit since we did the initial cammering and spot repairing a couple years ago. So we're having a meeting tomorrow afternoon to try to decide what route that project needs to switch to. Whether that's more spot repairs, whether that's line part of it, come back to part of it later, or extend the completion date to try to get into the next fiscal year so we have the funds. I don't have any solutions yet, but that project has some challenges in front of it, but we'll get through them. That's all I have.
Okay.
The age of the infrastructure.
Oh, I guess one other good news would be is city staff completed the first of 3 pours on the batting cage project that Jake and his team have been fundraising for at the sports complex. So that project is gearing up and moving along. So
Good. All right, thank you, Todd. Kurt, anything you have to share today?
We do not. Thanks.
Chief Birch, anything?
Thank you.
Angie?
No, thank you.
Mike is not here. Council to my left?
Nope, nothing.
To my right?
Yeah, I just want to invite the community to take an opportunity to see their tax dollars at work. Today was a poor date for replacement on the road on Oak Street from Washington to Rainbow was poured today, correct?
that's correct.
Todd? So if you want to come and see, like I said, see your tax dollars at work, come and take a look.
Not too close, though.
Don't step in the wet cement.
All right, Pete, is there anything you want to add?
No, thank you.
All right. The only comment that I have is an invitation. Tomorrow is the National Day of Prayer, and it will be celebrated tomorrow evening at 6:30 at Living Waters Church. The community is invited. I encourage you all to consider coming to that. And so with that, I would consider a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Support.
One for support.
Either way.
Roll call, please.
Hamel,
Aye.
Hint,
Aye.
Eggers,
Aye.
Farahona.
Aye.
All right, we are adjourned. Thank you.